Hi everyone, this is Amanda with Vintage Autumn. Today we are going to be making koozies and I will be showing you how to set up your station to make a lot of them. So to get started, let's talk about what products you're going to need for this project. You need a painter's tape. This is just a 3M, I don't know if you can see the inside of that, 1-inch painter's tape. You need a squeegee to apply the product. I grabbed this from IkonArt's website. You're going to need a clamp to hold your frame down. So you can see the clamp here is already mounted to my board. It comes in a 2-pack. You can grab these on Amazon. They're called Speedball Screen Printing Hinge Clamps. And they look like this here. When they come, they do come with the screws as well. And they're pretty easy to fasten. You can do it with just a screwdriver. No power tools or anything like that needed. And then you stick your frame in there and it swivels. So those come in a 2-pack. If you have a larger screen, you would actually use both of these and attach it on both ends of your screen. Since we're doing a smaller screen today, we just need one. Then you need your ink. I personally prefer Speedball. It's fairly cost efficient and it comes in just about any color that you're going to need. You're going to need your cup koozie. Today we're doing a popsicle koozie, and this is my IkonArt stencil that I have made to go on here. It just says play hard. You're going to need a frame. So this is a screen printing frame. It has a screen inside of it. I prefer a screen with 110 mesh, and to be honest, this is not the frame that I would prefer for you guys to buy if you're going out and buying one. I think this frame was around $40 for 6 of them, and it's fairly small. It's about a 5x7 on the inside, 8x10 on the outside. But the reason I don't recommend these is because the screen is permanent. It doesn't come off for you to replace it easily, and that's something that you might want to consider if you're using IkonArt stencils. So if you go to the IkonArt website, you will find Speedball frames. You can see this one has emulsion in it, so I can't use it today, but they have the Speedball frames there in the correct sizes that you will want. And if you flip them over, you can see that there is a rubber tubing here. This is removable. It pulls out, you can pull the screen out, you can replace the screen with a new screen, or you can actually put your IkonArt screens directly into this screen if you have the correct size frame. So that, I believe IkonArt has done a video on how to do that, and I can try to post a link down below. So if you are grabbing a screen, I recommend Speedball wooden frames with the removable screen. For today, the video's purpose, I will be using this screen though. And again, you want one with a screen inside of it, ready to go. Then I have just a scrap piece of wood. I believe this is 1 inch thick by 10 inches wide. So a 1x10, and it's just a scrap, so it's a random length. All you need is something that is at least thick enough that your screws don't go all the way through it, and big enough for your clamp plus your screen. So if you're using a larger screen, obviously you're going to need a larger piece of wood. Then we're going to put our screen in the clamp. Tighten it down, and we're ready to get started. The first step is already done. We've already put the screen into the clamp, and it is on our already mounted to our wood board. The next thing you're going to do is take your blank, whatever you're going to be making. So let's say I wanted to make 100 of these, or 100 of this size. Whatever you're going to be doing, grab it. I already did these, so you can see I had outlined these, but today we're doing this one. So you want to grab that, put it on your board, and I'm going to lay that down and see how well centered it is. I want it to be fairly well centered with my screen, just like that. Leave it in place here. Take a marker and outline it on your board. The reason we're doing this is because if you're doing, let's say 100 of these, this way you know exactly where to place it on the board every time you put a new one on. without having to line it up with your screen. Okay, so we have our box here. I'm gonna stick it right there and put my screen down. The next part is going to be placing your stencil on the screen here. So I can see where the product is, and now I'm going to place the stencil centered how I want it on the product. So we're gonna put it just like that, call it good. And now I am going to press this on here fairly firmly and make sure there's no bubbles and it's not stretched in any one direction. Okay, once it is pressed on there, we're gonna tape it down. I start by taping the top, then I tape the bottom, and then the sides. So I do the top first. Hold on, struggling with my tape. Do the top first. Press it down firmly. And then once I have the top on there, I go ahead and I press that stencil out again, just in case, because I want it stretched nice and tight with no bubbles underneath. Then tape the bottom. And then lastly, the sides. Make sure you are pressing down firmly because you don't want any bubbles underneath where the ink can bleed out. Okay. I'm going to go over the edges really good with my fingernail. Make sure it's all pressed down. And voila, we are ready to go. So no matter how many of these we do, we just stick it in there right inside the lines. The second the screen goes down, it is already lined up. So I can have a stack of 50 of them over here and quickly do each one without any problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and screen print this one, which honestly, this is the only one I have today, so I can't show you a bunch of them, but we're gonna pretend like we're doing a bunch. So we're gonna put it down. We've got our screen printing ink. I use it right out of the container. Some people don't like to do that, so that's personal preference. I go ahead and I dip some out. I get plenty on my squeegee, more than I'm going to honestly need for this design. And I'm going to press it this way, push it across, and I'm actually using a lot of ink here, and I'm flooding it. So I'm putting way more on there than needed. Then I'm gonna scrape the extra back in the container. Then I'm gonna take this and go with this angle and push down, applying pressure, and remove all that extra ink off of the design. It's okay if there's extra on the sides, but I want to push down, and as I'm doing this, I'm pushing that ink through those layers of screen, and I'm removing any excess ink. Also, while I'm doing this, every time you do a new design or you press this down to go over your product, you want to hold this end of the screen tight. You want to press down and have tension on that so that it is laying pretty firmly against your product. Okay, one last time I'm gonna go over that, putting any excess ink back in my container. Then it is ready to lift up. A lot of times if you're doing this, your item will stick to the screen. Then you just pull the item off and you're done. Now, if I was doing a bunch of these, I would lay my next item over here. We're gonna use a piece of wood because I don't have another cup koozie. So we would line it back up inside of our square, lay it down, more ink, same process. Lots of ink first time, scrape off extra, then re-angle going that way. I usually do it a couple times for good measure. Oop. Got a little extra there. lift up, and you have your design again. And you're gonna get a nice crisp design every time. And you can do all of your items in one sitting without ever having to wash this. As long as you are pressing firmly down on this frame for each item and you don't have any bleeding underneath, you shouldn't have to wash this until you are completely finished. Once you are finished with your design, you're going to pull up your tape, peel it all off, peel all the excess off, throw your tape away, wash this, and it's ready to use again next time. I do keep the plastic backer and I put the plastic backer back on it, and you would just tape it down and use it next time again. But wash with warm water. You also want to wash this frame out from the ink. It will likely stain, but you want any of that residue off of there. And there you have it. That's all you have to do to make your cup koozies. Okay, so now that we have went over how to make cup koozies, I wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the other things that you can make. So when you set this up, the main thing to remember is that you have roughly this much space underneath the frame because of, let me see if I can get it closer. This metal piece here is a little thick, so this does not lay flat on the wood when there's nothing under it. It has space under there. Let me see if you guys can see that there is space. So if you were doing, let's say, Christmas cards, because yes, you can screen print on Christmas cards. If you were doing a bunch of Christmas cards, you would need to put a piece of wood, something roughly that thick. I want to say this is a 1/4 inch maybe. You would want to put a larger piece of wood here and then put your paper on top of that so that it fills up that gap. You always want this screen to be pressed firmly against whatever's under there. Now let's say that you wanted to do something that's thicker. Also possible. You would just take some sort of wood to shim this. So again, you could use scrap pieces like this and put underneath this, and you would screw through this wood into the bottom. You'd probably have to get longer screws to do that, but it would raise your screen up so that when you press it down, it was level with whatever item you were doing. Specifically, that would work well with like canvases or something like that, like a framed canvas. Another thing that you can do is cup koozies. I've got a few items over here. I've got little tags. I do these for Christmas time, and I do a lot of these. So you can even set up like multiple items on one screen and do multiple at the same time. I've got things like this here I use for tree ornaments that I put designs on, and then I'll stick something like a little wooden flower or something in the corner with the design there. So that's something good you can do with this. You can do cup koozies. One thing that I will say with the cup koozies, buy quality cup koozies. So this one right here, it should be a 4x4 printing area and roughly 5 inches tall with the bottom. You want them to flatten. I've had a couple customers try to give me ones that they had already purchased and they wanted nicer koozies and ended up delivering these with a sewn bottom. If it does not fold flat, you cannot easily sublimate on it with this setup. So just something to keep in mind. You want flat folding ones and you want decent quality. If you have bad quality, what I mean by that is a lot of times they'll come and they will be flattened, like bent like this. So they are impossible to get the design on them straight. So just keep that in mind when you're shopping for your blanks. And then one other thing that I have had people ask me about with this frame, because some frames are kind of expensive and sometimes you want something fairly small. So I'm going to remove that frame. Some people use embroidery hoops as frames. That is fantastic. You can definitely do that. And you can, instead of doing the double layer screen like I showed you where you tape it, you can actually put your stencil directly, this one's too small, but directly in a frame and frame that to where you can use it. So that's great, But if you are using this system with this clamp, you have to remember, let me get this closer so you can see, that this clamp only goes so tight. And this specific embroidery hoop will not clamp in it. If you can find a wider one, that will definitely work, but the thinner embroidery hoops will not work in that clamp. So just something to kind of keep in mind. If anybody has any questions about any of the products I use, how I finish anything, or setting up your own and I can help, just let me know. And if you would like to order cup koozies or other products from me, you can shop at vintageautumn.com. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a great day.